Good evening.
Oh,
What are you doing?
what? Well, I was waiting to go. I was waiting to go live. So we are.
Yes, we got the cue. So
Okay. All right.
He's already banging on the table, so we got a good start.
it's gonna be a good night.
It's going to be a good night. All right. Well, Presbytera, it's nice to have you on the show. See, we're cycling through the whole thing, so we have everybody come in about, once a month or so. So it's nice to have you back on the show.
Nice to be here.
All right. Are you ready?
I am. How about you?
Well, we're going to find out. Now, I do have an icon of the day, good friend of ours. It was his name day on Wednesday,
Yes.
on the 6th, on Wednesday. So here is the icon of the day, and it was the saint of the day on Wednesday. So again, see who can identify now this icon. All right.
All right.
So just going to keep it up there, right? Or can I put it down?
Continue. I want to see how long you can hold it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we also have there's a couple of questions that came up, so I want to go ahead and answer those. But also, just kind of on an administrative note, the purpose of the show is right. Okay. The purpose of this show has been for you all, the audience, to ask questions. All right. About things that you've wondered about Orthodoxy. Now, again, I don't profess to be a great professor or some kind of theologian, but certainly through the time and the experience that I've had, I can provide, as I've said, the moderate answer to what the Orthodox Church believes. What I have been noticing, though, is that there are people that are answering the questions within the chat. And it makes life difficult here on two counts. Number one, our host, whoever that host is, Presbytera, Marissa, John, whoever, it makes it difficult because then they have to trace through the commentary that has been made to find the next question, and so we lose a lot of time. Next, this really isn't a forum, so we're not opening this up for discussion. All right, you ask a question, I'm providing you an answer, and then that's the back and forth that we're having.
Follow-ups are welcome, though.
Follow-up questions are welcome, but when the audience themselves is asking a question, it becomes very confusing now to the person who asked the question, because now they're saying, is Father Angelo answering the question, or is someone else answering the question? And it's really, on the second point, it's really unfair to those people asking the question. They have tuned into the show, they're asking me the question, okay, and now they will take that answer, and then they will go to their priest, and then they will say, okay, this is what I heard on the show, Father, I'd like to know what you think. So unless you are an ordained Orthodox priest, I would ask that you do not respond in answer to the questions, because you're going to create a confusing situation for the people that are asking the question. Because many times the answer is coming out ultra-conservative, or the answer is coming out liberal. And this show is meant to present mainstream Orthodoxy the way that it exists here in America today. I'm not speaking for Greece, I'm not speaking for Russia, I'm not speaking for any country outside of the United States. So we just have to remember what is the original intent and the purpose of this show. All right, having said that,
we got a guess for St. Luke. No.
Good guess, though.
Good guess, though, because
It does kind of look like
kind of
that,
look like
yes.
St. Luke, right? So the hint is read the Greek.
Can that be seen easily?
I don't know if the Greek, if you're not seeing the whole, there we go. Now you see the whole thing.
You really can't see.
That does look like St. Luke, though. That is true. All right. So while you're doing
He's
that,
not holding a lightsaber.
oh, yes, yeah. That is the... Okay, so now, here is a question that was asked. And
You can put that down.
Oh, I can put that down. So here's a question that was asked. I have a Ukrainian custom that I want to ask you about. Is there a tradition that the priest gives a ribbon and a scroll to the family of the deceased? So that's a Ukrainian tradition. We have a Ukrainian church here, an Orthodox Ukrainian church here in Rochester, and here's the response that I received from that priest. Okay, so it is true. They do give a ribbon. All right, the ribbon has written on it and I'm not sure, as written on it, the following prayer. Give rest, O Lord, to the soul of your servant, where there is no pain, no sorrow, no sighing, but only life everlasting. This is part of the Thersion hymn, or part of the Thersion prayer that we say towards the end of the funeral service. So that ribbon has that hope, that joy. Give rest, O Lord, to your servant, where all of his pain, sorrow, and suffering now have fled away, and he's granted, or she is granted eternal life. The scroll is the final prayer of absolution that is read over the deceased. Now, in the Greek Orthodox Church, we only read the prayer of absolution over a priest or a bishop. We do not read it over laity. Okay, so these are common practices in the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, but they are not given to the family, but rather given to the deceased. All right. Once upon a time, this was practiced in the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, but for reasons that he was not aware of, that this practice was discontinued. So the ribbon has the prayer of take away pain, sorrow, and suffering, life everlasting, and the scroll then is the absolution prayer. So I wanted to provide another custom that we have.
You owe Aaron 88205 your blessing. He guessed Thomas.
Thomas. Yes.
Aaron got it last week too.
All right. Very Thomas, very nicely done. May the Lord our God bless Aaron in his works as he continues to glorify Christ our God, Father, Son, and Holy Trinity. And Holy Trinity. Holy Spirit.
Okay. So you ready?
Well, we'll see. Let's go.
All right. First up is always being Bell. And I went to confession on Monday with my Greek Orthodox priest.
Mm-hmm.
I made notes with the topics I wanted to confess
Mm-hmm.
because I hadn't had confession in years. But I'm already remembering a few extra things that I should have included. How soon is too soon to go back to confession? Thank you.
So pretty easy answer. We don't necessarily have a time. I think the easiest thing to do is just to go to your priest and say, Father, there were several things that I had wanted to talk about, but I didn't have a chance to. I'd like to set up another appointment with you if possible, because these things are important to me. And then he'll set up another appointment with you. So no worries about that. Again, for Orthodoxy, it's a very informal process. Very easy process. So just go to him and say, there's several other things that I did want to confess, and could I make another appointment with you? And off we go.
From Ken ATL, in the recent video about the altar, which came out just this week, didn't it? You described the artophorion as holding the reserved sacrament, but not like the Catholic reserved sacrament. Please elaborate on the distinction you were making.
Okay, so in the Catholic Church, all right, as you know, rather than use the arto, the actual bread, they have then a pressed wafer, and that serves as the body. Okay, so they will have a number of these wafers, all right, and so those wafers will be consecrated. At the end of the service, some of those wafers have not been distributed to the laity, all right, and so since they are consecrated, they are not eaten as I would finish a Holy Communion, and so they have there is a particular term that they use, a sacristy, and what they will do is they will store that reserved sacrament that has been unused in that sacristy, and then they will bring those out, and then they can use those for then later services. So they refer to that as the reserved sacrament. For us, when we speak of reserved sacrament, what we're speaking of is that on every Holy Thursday during Holy Week, what I will do is I will prepare 2 lambs. The first lamb I'll use for the distribution of Holy Communion on Thursday, that Thursday morning. The second lamb I will leave in the pyx, which is just a box, a very decorated box that we put on the altar that I use for the pre-sanctified liturgies, and we will allow that to desiccate, and then that I will take and break into the 4 pieces, and I will place that into the reserved sacrament container on the artophorion. That I use only when I am visiting the hospitals, communion at home for the at home for the sick. Yeah, and those two reasons. So communion at home for the sick or the ill or the dying, and then if I have to go to the hospital. So in that sense, I'm not reusing that sacrament doing any type of liturgy. It's for the express purpose of distribution of communion outside of the church.
Real quick, I'm seeing what might be evidence that there were a couple more questions already in the chat before this point. If for some reason they may not be showing up, YouTube sometimes deletes early comments or so forth. So if at this particular point you think that your question was skipped, let us know. Just please retype or resubmit your question.
Bergeron, I'm saying that right, Magson, are tattoos sinful? I've heard different answers, so I can't be sure about it.
So, and this is a very popular question, right? The one about tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
Let's first answer: is it sinful? Well, what is the traditional Orthodox answer?
It depends.
It depends. That's right. What is the purpose for the tattoo? All right. And for us, for those of us that served in the military, many times we will get a unit designation or a unit tattoo, some type of saying. My grandfather had one. I don't think my dad did. I don't remember my dad having a tattoo, but my grandfather certainly had a tattoo when he was in the Merchant Marines. I know a lot of my Army buddies had tattoos also. So it was a symbol of brotherhood. In that sense, the Orthodox Church does not see the tattoo as sinful. All right. Where we see it as sinful, if it is something that does not glorify God. So if you're going to put a swastika on your arm, or you're going to put some type of symbol of oppression on your arm or on your forehead, if you're going to put some type of satanic verse, then the Orthodox Church would see that as not glorifying God, and we would consider that then a sinful act, anything that doesn't glorify God. But if we're using it in the sense of brotherhood, like it is in the military or a fraternity or something like that, then at least the Orthodox Church in America does not have an issue then with tattoos. The only thing that we ask is again, just be careful where you get the tattoos. You know, if you get the tattoo on your shoulder and you get a job where, tattoos are not necessarily, business acceptable, you have to be able to cover it with appropriate clothing. So sometimes people will get full body art tattoos, and sometimes they could place them how am I going to say this, in a situation where they may not be able to get a particular job that they want. So what we suggest is, if you're going to get a tattoo, get it in an area that you can cover up if you need to.
But that's for common sense purposes.
Right. Common sense purposes, not anything to do with religion.
Because if you get a tattoo of Darth Maul, like you look like Darth Maul, you might have trouble, getting a job at a daycare.
That is correct. Right.
But actually, it's funny we mentioned comments, but this is a good one right here, where Trench mentions even a tattoo of a cross can be seen as vanity. What's your take on that? Like, if somebody got a tattoo of a cross, is it for them, or is it something that they're showing off?
I tell you what, nobody, not one person has ever come to me and said, "Father, is it okay for me to get a tattoo?" Nobody has done that. They just have tattoos. They just do it. Okay, so if I see somebody with a cross, it's really too late for me to ask, is it a vanity? What I'll say is, I'll say, that's a beautiful piece of art. What inspired that? I'll say that. Hey, what inspired that? And then they'll tell me. All right. So if it turns out that it is something that has to do with they're just trying to show off, okay, then I can make that point to them and say, maybe you should do it in the sense of the fact that you see it as an evangelization. That if somebody sees the cross, they might be able to engage in a conversation. Somebody who would normally not engage in a conversation about Christ would engage in a conversation. So I can see a very nice tattoo as a conversation starter and a piece of silent evangelism.
Okay, well, Aaron, 88205. Hi, everyone.
Did you give him his free blessing?
I did
Alright,
get it. Yep.
How does Orthodoxy view exorcism?
Well, bottom line is
It's a great October topic.
it's a great October topic. So the answer is yes. We absolutely believe in exorcism. And again, remember, the beginning of the baptism service are the prayers of exorcism. Okay, so absolutely, the church believes in exorcism, not in the sense of the movie. What was the movie? The Exorcist.
The Exorcist, yeah.
Okay.
Very difficult to forget.
Yes, the
When
name
you're
of the movie.
discussing exorcism.
But totally, absolutely, totally false in terms of how that works. A single priest battling Satan. I mean, this is just ridiculous. And from the Orthodox Church's perspective, we do have not a department, but we do have two priests, a senior priest, and then one who is apprenticing under him. Who typically will handle those requests. The Orthodox Church, at least in America, begins from a perspective of science. If somebody comes to me, or if you come to me and you say, "My brother, he's possessed by the demon, can you exorcise him?" Okay, the first thing the Orthodox Church will say is, okay, has he been psychologically evaluated? Okay, is it a psychosis? Is he schizophrenic? So the first answer for us is always the scientific answer. We don't jump to exorcism, okay? When that is exhausted, and that could take several years, okay, until that is exhausted, and it's clearly shown that that has not produced results and that his condition is worsening, then he will be evaluated by this senior priest who will determine if this is an actual need for an exorcism. If it turns out that there is a need, then this is a process that will happen over many, many months. So again, it's not like the movie where, you hold up a cross and Satan come out and, Jesus can do that.
The power of Christ compels you.
The power of
Yes.
Christ compels you, yes, Jesus Christ can do that, okay? His apostles, in fact, right? Remember, they said, "I went to your apostles and they couldn't cast them out," and so even they had difficulty. So this is not a one and done thing. This is something that takes a lot of time. And that particular priest has told us in seminary stories about the strength that those demons have is much more powerful than any single individual. But I mean, this is not something to be toyed with. So.
It's
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, that point was illustrated in the Bible when they were. Oh my gosh, which one was it? Whether it was Legion or
The pig.
The pigs, but the other one, he was very strong when they had to have him chained up. And,
yeah, he was right that he encountered the Gadarenes,
Gadarenes.
the Gadarenes demon, right? And when he asked him, "What is your name?" he said Legion, which represents 10,000 demons. So this is,
and they were chained up, weren't they?
And they had him chained, right? They had him chained. So yes, we do believe in it, but it is a very, very extended process that starts with science, and if proven that science cannot answer this question, then we will move into that. But we have. We as parish priests are not allowed to perform exorcism. We as parish priests do not perform exorcisms.
Number one, we have a video about Legion, actually a Sunday school video.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
So look it up. Number two, how often does an Orthodox priest conduct exorcism? And what do you know when the last time a legitimate exorcism was conducted by the Orthodox Church?
Yeah, and again, we don't keep any real statistics on this, but when I was talking to that priest, he was a fairly senior priest, I think probably 40, 50 years as a priest, and I think he mentioned 5 maybe.
Oh, wow.
And then did he mention how does a priest get chosen to be the priest to do the exorcisms?
He did not talk about that. But there's no training. There's not a class at seminary about expelling demons 101.
Well,
Exorcism for dummies.
Right.
Yeah.
But you said he has an apprentice. There is a training.
So right. There is somebody that he will choose, and then he will work with him, and so this is something that is passed on, but not not taught. I mean, not taught in a school.
We have a trio of super chats. First one up by Tommy Williams, $2. Thank you, Tommy.
Tommy, thank you.
Should we make our kids dress modestly?
Okay, I gotta say, for church, he's probably talking, right?
No, I mean it didn't specify. So let's talk about both. For church, I think we all assume the answer is yes.
Well, yes, but we do have a non-denominational culture that says come as you are. Okay, we are not as Orthodox. We are not that culture. So we do insist that everybody that attends dresses moderately. What's the better word than moderate? Dresses not appropriately, but
Well, with some modesty, I mean,
with modesty, but with
Respect?
reverence.
Yeah,
With-
respect, reverence.
with respect and reverence for the house that you are entering. All right. So for church, I would absolutely agree. I do think that it's important that we dress in a reverent manner, and that we do not be a stumbling block to our brother. And specifically, what I'm talking about is that, if women are going to wear certain revealing things, it can be a stumbling block to men.
Or if I show up wearing a wife beater, that might be a stumbling block for some women.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it could be. Now, if it's the bigger question about should we ask our kids to dress modestly, I think the answer to that is certainly it's parents dependent, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with us learning how to dress respectfully when we will be entering a workforce. Now, again, I happen to be more conservative on this because the jobs that I've had, the military, General Motors, engineering consultant, all of those required a much more modest kind of dress.
Well, I meant muscles. I didn't mean anything else.
Oh. So,
Well, and different people have different ideas about what modest means.
right. And in fact, I think the perfect answer, the perfect example of that would be, should a woman wear a scarf during the service, right? A headscarf during the service. There are some women that feel that without that scarf, it is immodest. Okay, the Orthodox Church here in America, in a parish setting, does not consider that immodest. A parish setting does not consider women wearing pants immodest. Okay, in a monastery or in some other more conservative churches, that would be considered immodest. A woman wearing pants, a woman not wearing a scarf. So again, you're right. It is somewhat dependent upon.
We do have a video about etiquette in the church, but also
I don't know if it talks necessarily about the clothes. If we talked about the clothing,
Oh, we talk a little bit about the clothing, if I remember correctly.
Okay,
It's been a
all right.
while, but let's expand the question to in general, if our children should be dressed modestly every day.
Right, and that's what I said.
Yeah.
And that's why I said my opinion is much more conservative because the business settings that I have worked have demanded a much more modest style. All right, I can't show up at General Motors, wearing a t-shirt or wearing shorts, sneakers. I can't.
Yeah, but we're talking about children here.
So what I'm saying is that I think that and so let's not say children, okay? Let's at least move to teens. Let's move to
I think
teens.
the question was
The question was about children specifically. If children should be dressed modestly.
Well, then, okay, so a child is defined as under 12.
Yes.
Okay, so give me an example of what would be immodest for a child? Walk around naked, or I mean,
some
let's-
children that age have worn makeup to school.
Yeah, there's also
Oh.
you have to take into consideration this generation, right? They're growing up with Instagram models and TikTok dancers and so forth, You get some 12-year-olds that go to school that put on a lot of makeup, they look like teenagers, or they feel compelled to dress that way. Or, on the other hand, let's take the digital side out of account. If you live in Florida, when I was 8-10 years old, and I was outside in June, July, I probably wouldn't wear a shirt half the time. Some people might consider that immodest. So I mean, what is our thought on that?
Um,
I guess on the generational influence and just the general like being outside.
so and again, there's not necessarily a published paper on how children should what the Orthodox Church says about how children should dress outside. But the church would say that the child should be allowed to be a child and not forced or bullied or pressured into being something that they are not. Okay, so the makeup example.
Phew, boy, have you been in?
Well,
have you
I
been
need,
a
I
kid
need
lately?
actually there is a
Yeah, I know.
clarification that he does mean teens. So not young kids, teens.
All right, no, they are, but the Orthodox Church always supports image and likeness of God. You are not compared to one another. You are compared to the image of God. And the way that you were made, we have to teach our teens to be happy in who they are. And if they don't want to wear makeup, they shouldn't be pressured into wearing that makeup. Okay, so the question becomes, why is the teen wearing makeup? More than likely, it's going to be because of some type of pressure that they feel in the school. And the Orthodox position is, you are the image and likeness of God. If this is something that you'd like to wear a little bit of makeup because it makes you feel better, the church has nothing against that. But if you're doing it because now you as the other 12-year-old kid is saying, oh, you got to do that, we have to resist that temptation. So we have to stress that they are the image and likeness of God.
I think we can also apply the extremes, like with the tattoo answer. You're not wearing shirts that have,
obscene.
Obscenities or.
Here's a question: how about those for teens? How about those fake tattoos? Is that wrong? You
The
can
henna
rub 'em on-
tattoos?
You can rub them on. They look like little tattoos.
Ow.
What do you think about that for kids wearing?
Again, I would say exactly the same thing. Is that as long as they're not obscene or they are, what's the word? Not a disgrace to God, but they are an affront to God. Okay, I would say, all right, they want to put on a little patch. We don't have any issues with that, but teen shaming is something we have to, as parents and a community, we have to be very, very aware of, and we have to make sure that we arrest that anytime that we see it.
Diane has a $50 super chat.
Oh,
Good,
my
good. Whoa,
goodness.
holy
Wow.
smokes, Diane! Wow.
Thank you, Diane. If you see an icon in a museum, do you venerate it? Do you kiss the glass or not get thrown out?
Okay, so it's an icon. I would reverence it. If it is, if it's in a museum and they say you can't touch the icon, okay, then you can't touch the icon. But nothing stops me from approaching the icon and then venerating that icon, right? And then just bowing in front of it. Nothing would stop me from doing that. Wherever an icon is, it is a holy image. All right, not because we worship that icon, but because we venerate now the prototype that is being represented. So whether it's in a church or a home or a museum, it always retains its nature as an icon, and it should then be venerated. But again, we have to follow whatever the museum protocol is.
Well, especially nowadays with everybody being very germophobic, kissing a glass that everybody leans their heads on and touch and so forth. It's not very healthy.
No, but I mean, I would.
In a museum?
Dude.
Yeah.
You saw me put the bar of soap in my mouth, for Pete's sake, right?
They haven't yet, so they have no
Oh,
idea
they
what you're
Yeah, they
talking
have
about.
no idea.
Okay.
Watch out for a Christmas special.
Yeah, watch out for the Christmas special. You'll get a real kick out of this one. So obviously, I don't care, right? But Diane brings up a great point, because this, again, is silent evangelism. People in that museum are going to see you making the cross, and they're going to ask, what are you doing? I mean, this is a painting. And then you have a chance to express your Orthodox faith. That's a beautiful silent witness, right?
Yes.
And we also have a super chat from Toby Jean Almy, $5. Thank you very much. As an outsider looking in, I'm struggling with the whole toll house subject. It appears that some see it as heresy and some don't. Any questions on it? We've gotten this a few times before.
Well,
Yeah.
well, who's it again?
Toby.
Toby?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Orthodox faith, okay? That you have hit the nail right on the head. And this show is the perfect example of that, because regardless of what I say, right? Regardless of what I say, somebody is going to say, no, you're wrong, right?
Right.
I mean, that's so there always will be people that will say, oh, this is heretical. And toll houses fall in that same category. Again, it is an idea that was promulgated. I can't use big words. Propagated by Father Seraphim Rose in one of his books. All right. There is no real biblical evidence for this as far as the Orthodox Church sees. So it is not a generally accepted practice in the Orthodox Church. Some people do see that within the Orthodox Church as a heretical idea. Some people accept it totally because they see Father Seraphim as a modern day prophet. But generally speaking, we do not have any kind of proof that a toll house exists. And we are very, very cautious about this practice because for us it smacks a little bit too much of earning your way into heaven. You know, that your good deeds are weighed against your bad, and this idea of the balance of the scales. You have the demon pulling you down. You go to one toll house and you have the demon pulling you down, and then your guardian angel tells about all the good works that you did. Again, we are saved through grace, as St. Paul says, not by works. Not that we shouldn't do works, but the Orthodox Church believes you do works out of love, not out of obligation. Works don't get you into heaven. Belief in Jesus Christ as the Lord and Savior gets you into heaven, but when you believe in Jesus Christ out of love, you want to do good works for humanity. So toll houses kind of obscures that fact.
Okay. Trench has a question. I'll do my best to read it. What do you think about genetically manipulated forms of Luciferus, the Lightbringer nickname, for CRISPR DNA editing and testing of medication and manipulation of genes?
Well, not being a genetic scientist, I couldn't really comment on that.
If the question is Luciferus being the base word, that's luciferin, which is a light emitting compound, such as the kind of compound that you will find in a firefly. That's what gives it its bioluminescence.
Okay.
It's based on the Latin word Lucifer, which does mean lightbringer, as Trench mentioned. The lightbringer nickname is the clarification I'm curious about is the question based on the key word of Lucifer in Luciferus as being a possible bad thing, or the genetic manipulation in general. Maybe we can take a more generalized approach for the moment.
Okay, so if we take part A of the question, we have to go back to Genesis. God creates and he says it is good. What is created by God is good. Okay, whatever name we want to give it doesn't matter. It is good. So we don't want to say that a firefly, because he has it has luminescence, whatever that thing is, whatever that thing is, he is not evil because we have decided to use this term. All right, Jesus Christ says, "I am the light." All right. So Satan doesn't have the last word on light. Yes, I know he was referred to as an angel of light, but the true light is Jesus Christ. I mean, that is the true light. Okay, so we understand metaphorically how Satan can be the false light, that he can lead people falsely. But the Orthodox Church is not going to now take his name and just because it's applied to something, then make that creature bad. Genesis is very clear, and God said it was good. Done. This is why we don't start from sometimes that in some Protestant churches that where they kind of go overboard and say, I'm evil, I'm bad, I'm not created. The Orthodox Church always starts from the premise that we as human beings are good, but we are tainted by sin. So I wanted to address that part first. The genetic manipulation part, the Orthodox Church does have some serious issues with the extent of genetic manipulation, mainly because we don't have enough knowledge to understand what we're playing with or what we're doing. All right. So like cloning, things like that, the Orthodox Church is not in favor of those things because we are in the realm of God in terms of creation. And we certainly are not evolved enough to understand the consequences of what we're doing. So the Orthodox Church does have some serious reservations about, the extent of genetic research.
One of the things they're talking about is that people, I don't know if they can do it or if this is something on the verge of, that parents will be able to choose which sex child they have.
And
No, I think they can do that now.
They can do
Yeah,
that now.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they can.
but again, and we're again, though we're in areas where we really shouldn't, where we don't understand the consequences of what we're doing because we are tainted by sin. There is always in the Orthodox world the ability for man to use it in a perverse manner. So as much as it could be for the good of science, our being tainted by sin allows us to use it for improper purposes.
Robert Yanni asked,
Yanni.
do you remember Archbishop Christodoulos of Athens' statement, Παιδιά, ελάτε όπως είστε, or children, come as you are? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, yes, I do remember Archbishop Christodoulos, and he was a very well loved and very well respected Archbishop of Greece, and he did quite a bit to bring the youth who were falling away from the church, just like they are in other countries, like in America, and Archbishop Christodoulos did quite a bit of work to bring the youth back into the church. And one of the ways that he did that was this idea of come as you are, come as you are into the church. So we are very, very much supportive of that. Now, I don't think that in that sense, he meant to come, in shorts and improperly dressed. I think he was extending that more to, okay, you know what? You want to come in jeans? Come in jeans. Okay, nice pair of jeans. Look nice, but if you want to come in jeans, that's fine. If you want to come in just like a polo shirt, okay, that's fine. So I think that what he was doing was opening up what was a very closed, system, of jacket, tie, shirt, and kind of opening it up to how youth was dressed, how youth was dressing in Greece, and how they are. So I think that was a very good thing that he did, because he was able to connect with the youth, and I see that as a lot of what the Catholic Church has been doing with youth, is trying to speak to them at their level, but at the same time not totally compromising everything.
Do you think he could have meant come as you are with the sins you have, the weaknesses you have, the problems that you have? What
he could have. We weren't in Greece, but he could have. But what was stressed at that time was the fact that, hey, I could come in more relaxed. So at least from the way that I heard about it, it was more of a superficial thing about the clothing, not necessarily about your inner spiritual sense.
Real quick, we got a request for you to hang up your military flag again from last week. Do you still have it here?
Oh, okay. So really quick story. And Terry knows this. When one of our favorite monasteries that we go to visit, our two favorite people, Father Joseph and Father Michael, at the Holy Trinity Monastery in Port Huron, Michigan, or near
Smith's Creek,
Smith's
right
Creek,
outside of
Michigan. When we were in Michigan, 24 years that we were there, we visited that monastery many times. The hospitality there is bar none.
It's wonderful.
It's wonderful. It is absolutely wonderful. So on this last tour, where actually Demos, you came with us for that.
We filmed it.
We
Future
filmed
videos.
future videos, and we went back to go see how they made candles. And we were in a warehouse, and I looked up, and I saw a Marine Corps flag, and I said, Father Joseph, I says, where's the Army flag? And he says, Father Andrew, he says, I'm sorry, but I only have the Marine Corps flag. So the flag that you saw, I mailed to Father Joseph and told him, hang this up in the warehouse. So I'll have to buy now another Army flag.
We have some super chats. I hope I didn't skip any from Diane for $9.99. Thank you, Diane. In baptism, there is an exorcism.
Yes, there is. Three, in fact.
Yes. Skip down here.
We also got a request if you can put that up. Maybe you can lean it against the computer screen, so people can see a little bit more. Perfect. Oh, we got a lot of questions. I can jump to the next one if you need some. Trench has question number 2, which is connected to his earlier question, which is why I want to get to it. Also, the use of aborted fetus in medications and some injections, or using to test with them, which should we see as abortion as a blessing, since so many thing use it, which even the patriarchs injection an ingredient, well, most were test with it. I'm not quite understanding the context of the sentences, but I think I know where you're getting at, stem cell research and so forth.
Okay, so one of the things that came up about vaccines was that the reason that we should not take vaccines is because we're using aborted fetuses for research. Okay, so the answer to that question is that back in 1971 or 72, there was a practice of using them. There was two aborted fetuses, one I think in the Netherlands and then another one in another European country. And those fetuses were originally used back in the early 70s for vaccine research. They did do that. That is true. However, what they did was they continued over the years to make copies of those of that DNA. And today, the origin of the copies that we are using today for our research comes from them. All right. So we are not using aborted fetuses today. Now, I'm not going to say that there's not some kind of wild lab out there that's doing it, but mainstream pharmaceutical companies today are not using fresh aborted fetuses. This is a clone, a copy that they have made from two fetuses that existed in the early 70s. Okay, it is what it is. All we can say is that now they are being used for the glory of God, that we can provide now with those two. Those two obviously were sacrificed. We certainly don't believe that should have been done, but it was done, and it has been used now to promote then to help us build vaccines for the future. But the Orthodox Church in no way supports the use of aborted fetuses. But they understood what was done there, and although they don't like the way that it started, they are accepting of the fact that we have stopped doing that, and that what we're using today is the clones or the copies of those. So does that help, Demos? Is that?
Well, I mean, just for clarification, I guess, because I know that there will be some follow-ups to this, but once again, when it comes to the vaccine, YouTube will ban us for questioning anything with it. That's just the way the thing is right now. But there's been a lot of research being done with stem cells in particular. There have been many great leaps in medication because of it. Is that something that you think that we should continue to pursue, or do you think that because of the source, that's an issue.
Okay, but my and again, in no way am I a genetic scientist. Okay, but my understanding is that we are able now to get science has advanced far enough that we can obtain stem cells from other parts of the body. Now we don't only get stem cells from aborted fetuses. We have advanced the technology enough that stem cells can be obtained from other parts of the body that are not offensive or are not desecrating the body.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Aaron says, when I was chrismated into Orthodoxy years ago, I was not given a saint's name. I never gave it too much thought, but now I am. Should I think it's be concerned. I think it says, should I be conference, but I think that's good old spell autocorrect, and I'm guessing
Concerned.
should I be concerned.
No, you've got a great name, Aaron. We have plenty of people in the Greek Orthodox Church who are named after the great prophets.
Right, they don't have to all be Greek. We
No.
have many saints that are not Greek.
That are not Greek. Aaron is a wonderful name. It's got a beautiful history attached to it. I mean, he was Moses' right-hand man. He was the one who was gifted the people of Israel, right? After Moses, right? It went into Aaron's hands, didn't it? As the priest.
Joshua. You're talking about Joshua?
Oh, I thought it was Aaron that as the priest. All right, but we'll have to make sure get our Old Testament straight. But you are allowed to have the name of a prophet or a saint, and so you already have a great name. Aaron is assuming that's your name. Aaron's a wonderful name to have.
Aaron was his brother, was it? Moses' brother Aaron? You're talking about
He was
that?
the one that could speak. Because Moses had an issue, like he was
Yes,
afraid to
okay,
speak. Aaron
all right.
was
Brother.
Oh, so it wasn't Aaron. It was
Aaron was the brother,
Right.
and Joshua was the one that took them into the promised land.
Yes, right, okay, yeah, thank you.
Skip down.
See, Aaron had a second question here about if we ever will see deaconesses in the church again, and if not, why? Deaconesses.
Sure, why not? Why can't we have deaconesses in the church? The ancient church. Oh, sorry. The ancient church had deaconesses. In fact, the canons of the church in the ecumenical councils are very clear about prescribing what are the requirements to be a deaconess. So this was a role that we had. Both the Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church have been for many years now looking into restoring the role of the deaconess. So I absolutely believe that within the next 20 years, I think that we will. Again, I don't have any inside track here, but the way that I see the fact that they're having these discussions now, they've had them for several years. That absolutely yes, I think that we're going to have the deaconess role. Because I think that there is a significant role that a woman deacon can play in the church that is much needed. Okay, women priest, I don't see that happening in our lifetime. Demos's lifetime, Demos's kids' lifetime.
My kid's lifetime, man.
And everything's possible.
Real quick, we have a question about the music. Fridron asked about the music, the title of the music playing. I have a link to where we one of the places where we get our music. I think if off the top of my head, it's SFX Valley, I think. But the link is in the description. The title of this piece of music, I would have to listen to the music now to be able to figure it out, which I can't. But I believe it's World Mix number 3. I can get you an exact answer next week.
I think since we sat here at Demos has sprouted a few gray hairs from your banging on the table.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's why I grow my hair long now, so people won't see all the gray hairs you've given me. Hey, as long as I still have hair, I'm good.
Yeah.
Ah!
There we go. How about that? Did he just make a backhanded compliment about my bald head? At least
Maybe.
I have hair.
Maybe. All right. Next up, Donis, you're you. There is talk about unity between Orthodox and Catholic. Great, but should we take care of our dispute with the Russian Orthodox first?
Yes, yes, 100. He is 100% right. We should clean up our own house. You know, the situation with the Coptic Orthodox, the situation with the Oriental Orthodox, the situation with the Moscow Patriarchate. All of these things have to be taken care of before we can pursue reunification with the Catholic Church. Now, that's not to say that we can't continue our patriarch can't continue conversations with the Patriarch of Rome. Let's call him that, not the Pope, but the Patriarch of Rome. Those discussions should continue, but absolutely, we have to get our own house in order so that we can be able to speak to the Catholic Church in a unified voice. Yeah, so I would agree with that.
Yeah, I can't imagine the logistics involved in unification. It just, oof. And then a little comment. I'm not sure if this is. It's Father Constantine Bodine. I don't know if that's the same Bodine.
It's
from,
the same. I
is
think
it?
it's the same.
Oh.
Yep, same Bodine.
Hi, Father Constantine.
Hey.
He says there are no toll houses.
Okay.
And I love this next one. Hingle McCringleberry.
That's a great name.
I love that. What is the church stance on using human embryonic fetal cells in developing vaccines? I think I just didn't read it ahead.
Okay, and the answer is absolutely not. Okay, now and again, repeating the argument that I heard from people who will call and say the vaccine does contain aborted aborted fetus cells. As I explained, there were 2 aborted fetuses, both in the early 1970s, that were originally used for vaccine research, but reputable pharmaceutical companies since that time have not been using aborted fetuses, but they have been using copies of those cells. So the origin of those cells is an aborted fetus, but any pharmaceutical company that is using current aborted fetuses, the church absolutely 100% rejects.
I skipped a question that was asked a little while ago.
Abby K. Elias.
Abby K.
Yeah.
Elias. Why Oriental Orthodox churches are different from the Eastern Orthodox churches?
My fault on this. I have been lax. I need to do some more research into exactly that question. And what we really need is that there have been many position papers that have been written on the differences between Oriental Orthodox and let's say Greek Orthodox, but I've been lax in getting the solid answer to that question. I just want to make sure that my research is correct, because there's a lot of history there, and I just want to make sure that I do that correctly. So I'm going to forestall that question for right now because I'm not prepared to answer it.
I have a weird question. Are there any Oriental Orthodox churches in the States? Anyone nearby, if possible?
Well. Not nearby here in New York. No, not that I know of. I am sure that there probably are Oriental Orthodox churches here in the United States, but I
maybe we ought to look into it. Maybe for a future video.
Is maybe find who are where there is an Oriental Orthodox church, and maybe have that discussion and let them speak for themselves as opposed to me speaking for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Robert Yanni, Father, I am a member of the Orthodox Church here in England. What are the differences occurring between the church in America and in Greece and Cyprus?
Oh shoot! I thought he was going to ask me about the difference between there and England, because I could have, because again, had the opportunity to serve in Glasgow at St. Luke's Greek Orthodox Church with Father Constantine, and he was from
Tripoli.
Tripoli. That's right. He was from Tripoli. But the question is,
what are
is
the
not that.
differences occurring between the church in America and in Greece and Cyprus?
Well, there are speaking from a positive standpoint, you know, our liturgies and our theologies are the same. Where we differ is in the application of social issues. And one of those social issues is the idea of Orthodox marrying non-Orthodox. This is an American phenomenon that is not been yet accepted in other countries. Okay, and so we saw this in the 2016 Holy Synod that was held on Crete, and it was America that said, you know, we are allowing inter-Christian marriages of people who are not Orthodox but are Christian, and that became a stumbling block for some of the other countries that said, you know, why are you doing that, and when did we get permission to do that? So that's certainly a social issue, a difference, but that's really where the differences are. Not in the liturgy, not in the services, not in the theology, but in the application of Orthodoxy to modern day social issues.
Fergeron just mentioned that there are Oriental churches in the USA and that he's watched videos from them. So we ought to track that down. That might be a future travel video. Which, by the way, the travel videos are debuting this month, so get ready for those.
And speaking of Fergeron, I had skipped a question. I've always thought that one goes to confession every time he or she sins, but I'm hearing people doing confession only once a month or even once a year. Is this like that in the whole Orthodox Church or only in the Greek Orthodox Church?
Well, if you went to confession every time you sinned, okay, the priest would do nothing but hear confessions, because we are sinning every single day. All right. So it's a logistic impossibility to go to confession every day. Just the priest has things that he has to do, and it would just be a huge logistical nightmare for the person also. So typically what happens in non-Greek Orthodox parishes is that typically they have confession. They try to hold their parishioners to having confession once every 3 months. All right. So that's generally speaking what is the cyclic period of that. Romanians, the Russians, Ukrainians, so on and so forth. In the Greek Orthodox Church, confession very rarely happens, and again, it's very, very parish dependent. More American parishes will have confession more often. They'll be closer to that Russian Romanian style. Parishes that are traditionally much more Greek in nature will have confession maybe once a year, maybe. But let's take Flint, because I was in Flint Grand Blanc for 10 years, and in that time in 10 years I did 5 confessions, maybe 10, all right, because again, it was just not in their nature. And we kind of already talked about in others, and I can bring that up again, about why it's not in the Greeks' nature to go to confession. They should. It is a canon. It is a canon law that you must receive the sacrament of confession before you can receive communion. That's in the canons, but we don't abide by that in the Greek Archdiocese as much as we should. But like I said, it's very culturally dependent. A more American-style parish will have more confession, and a Greek-style parish will have much, much less confession.
Real quick, I got 2 follow-ups and a super chat. The one follow-up is from Toby. We know what happens to children that joke about bald men. Watch out for bears. You see, I'm not making fun of Father Angelo. I'm just reminding him of his youth whenever he sees my long, luxurious, very healthy hair. Knock on wood. That's on purpose, banging on the table. Also, Mark Gassert said 20 years really for a deaconess. I think when Father said 20 years, I think you were referring to a possibility of a female priest, not.
No,
to-
no, no,
no,
no,
no.
no. I'm talking about the deacon. I don't the deaconess program.
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought it was
You know,
20 years from now we will allow deaconesses. Sorry.
yeah, and he's saying really like
Yeah.
that's what that long, right? Okay. The problem is that unfortunately it gets taken off the table all the time. It's on the table, and then something else will come up. Like,
Conveniently, maybe.
well, could be, you know, like the situation with the Moscow Patriarchate. Well, we've got to focus on that, so this is off the table. And then it goes back on the table, then something else comes up, and then you take it off the table. So if they kept it on the table, it would come up much quicker. That's why I'm saying that I mean, again, I don't have a crystal ball here. I'm not saying exactly 20 years, but the pattern right now is that, you know, it's not something that is considered crucial to the life of the church at this time.
And the super chat is $5 from Toby. Can we keep our saint name even if it's a Catholic saint? Asking for ... me. And it also reminds yet again about the priest's baldness and bears. I carry bear mace wherever I go.
All right. You know, it's, you know, a saint is a saint. I mean, you know, we don't want to, and here's the moderate opinion again, right? There are conservatives that will say, no, I want it to be an Orthodox saint. That is the only saint that, all right. But, you know, if you already have a name and it's not a heretical saint, right? A saint that's been excommunicated or something, then we really don't have an issue. We don't really have a problem with that. Again, the only thing that we have a problem with are pagan names and offensive names. All right, those are really the only two things that we have a problem with. But you know, saint, whether it's a Catholic saint or it's an Orthodox saint, you know, there really isn't an issue with that. So I would not really worry about that.
So when you say offensive name, what do you mean by offensive? In what way?
Like
Lucifer?
Yeah,
Well,
some
yeah.
parent wants to name their kid Lucifer. Okay, you know, or
Demon.
or yeah, right. There's Damien, right? But no, it's pronounced demon. Okay, that would be offensive.
Wait a minute. Demos?
No, you know what? At Starbucks, that happens to me all the time. And they write my name, I go with the N instead of Demos, but they add an N instead of the S. So I look back to them, I'm like, how horrible do you think my parents were? Jeez.
Is there a demon here? Is there a demon here? Looking for...
That's terrible, and I'm laughing. Robert Yanni says, I have a quirky little tradition. When the priest states exeretos,
Right. Mm-hmm.
which means,
Oh.
well, I'll finish the sentence
yeah.
and then you can tell us. My grandmother taught me to make a little cross on my forehead. I have only ever seen one other person do this. What is this about?
Give me 1 second here.
All right, and I saw that Diane gave us another $50 super chat.
Good Lord! All right.
Thank
Diane,
you.
Thank you.
Specifically asking for us to answer Scott Romanowski's question, which I'm looking for while you're looking that up. So in the meantime, it is up to Presbytera to entertain us.
Uh-oh. What can I do? I can tell stories, you know, that people haven't heard about.
Well, it's a good
Father.
thing you have your definition book out, because Scott's question asks for about 10 different definitions.
Wow.
10 different definitions of...
Define the terms, forgive me for this, Troparian, Kontakian, Apostasia, Katavasia, Anabath, Exapostularian, and Hippocoi.
I'm not seeing that on here. It's on.
Oh. It sounds like these are
They're in your prayer book, he says.
Yeah, they're names for different prayers. Now, again, the exeretos, okay, so this is the whole thing right here. Exeretos της Παναγίας αχράντων επερευλογημένης εν δόξω δεσποίνης ημών Θεοτόκου και αϊπαρθένου Μαρίας. The reason that your yaya, I believe it's yaya, he said, is asking you to make the sign of the cross is typically when the name of the Holy Trinity is invoked, we make the sign of the cross. And many Greek Orthodox Christians, when when the Theotokos' name is mentioned, they also, her as the mother of the savior of humanity, they will also make this cross. So this is one of this one, and remembering our most holy, pure, blessed, and glorious Lady, the Theotokos, and ever Virgin Mary with all the saints. When at the end of the antiphons, usually you'll see people make the sign of the cross there because her name is being invoked. Here, where it says exeretos, especially for our most holy lady, exeretos, and so in this case, and the response to that is also when you can make your cross. It is truly right to bless you, Theotokos, the mother of our God, more honorable than cherubim. This is what the choir then will sing. So there's nothing wrong in saying that, but it is a Greek Orthodox, or is a Greek tradition to make the sign of the cross in addition to when Father, Son, Holy Spirit is mentioned, when the name of the Theotokos is invoked. Okay.
I have Demos actually brought up. Here's the defining the terms tropadion, kontakion, postica.
Okay. They're all terms. Okay. So at the end of the day, these terms are all hymns. Oh, wow. I'd have to.
Would you like to start the next show with the full?
Yeah, you know what?
explanation?
I think let's hold that, because I want to just I want to make sure. The bottom line is that these are names for certain kinds of styles of hymns, not hymns themselves, but the style of the hymn. And so what we'll do is we'll take those terms, and then, because I know each one of these, and they're certainly found or most of these are found in the Orthros service. Some of them are found in the Vesper service, and then a few of these are also found in the liturgy. But the vast majority of these are pulled from the Matin service.
And they come in specific places
in specific places in the Orthros service. So when you hear those, you'll know exactly where you are in the Orthros service.
Being that we're in the last half hour, let's make sure that we cover all new questions from first time users.
This one popped out. Trench asks, why are non-Orthodox allowed to get communion in an Orthodox church?
I am not aware of that practice. I mean, let me put it this way. That is not a practice that I have. That is not a practice of any of the people, the seminarians who are now priests that went through. Non-Orthodox cannot receive Holy Communion in an Orthodox church. Let me say that again. Non-Orthodox cannot receive communion in an Orthodox church. However, I do know that there are some priests who have taken it upon themselves to say, you know what, your husband and wife, go ahead and take communion even though you're Catholic or Protestant. They are operating outside of the Orthodox church. So his question is correct. He's not saying you shouldn't, but I'm saying that is not currently allowed in the Orthodox church, period.
All right. Yeah, I hadn't heard of that.
But if it's happening because the priest is going rogue.
Thalia from London, UK, asked, how did the name Thalia, am I saying it right? Thalia become a saint when it was a pre-Christian name?
Actually, we have quite a number of Greek pagan names that are acceptable names because Saint Paul went to Greece and he evangelized to many of the Greeks there. And at that time, they didn't necessarily have this concept of you had to have a saint name when you're baptized, so they were able to keep their names. So we do have several names that began or have a pagan origin, but were saints in the church, like Aristotle, like Plato, Thalia, Athena,
Demosthenes.
right? Demosthenes, right? Which became saints, and once they became saints, they were allowed to have that name. But yes, clearly their source was from the Greek pagan culture.
Do we have a Saint Zeus yet?
Zeus is one of the names we're not allowed. We do not have a Saint Zeus.
If your name is Zeus, please become a saint. That's.
I mean, we have at seminary we had Achilles.
There's a Saint Achilles.
Saint Achilles.
That is
yeah.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That is awesome.
If you can find the saint, you're golden.
This is a question from, gosh, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this right. Wow. Zevius G?
Zevius G, yeah.
Okay. Sorry if that's wrong. Do you have any good advice to learn the Greek alphabet?
I'd say, and Demos would probably agree with me on this. Just go to YouTube, right? Go to YouTube and put in Greek alphabet, and you'll probably get at least 20 or 30 YouTube videos of Greeks going alpha, beta, gamma, delta.
And actually, the great thing about Greek is once you know the alphabet, once you learn the alphabet, it's actually much easier to read than some other languages.
Yeah, I mean, it's the
in my opinion,
it's the cheapest way to learn is YouTube. I mean, it is now become the how-to for anything that you want.
And also, if your church offers any type of Greek school.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Which this church offers one as well, doesn't it?
Right.
For adults?
And hopefully, right now, I had taken a poll of adults who wanted to learn Greek, so have kind of an adult Greek education class. We do have a kids Greek school, but there were right now we've got about and I know for our non-parishioners this is not interesting, but now hopefully starting in November, I've secured several teachers. We're going to do an adult education class here, and most parishes do have at least children's Greek education. Children's Greek education, and a lot of parishes also do have an adult supplement too.
Yes. Well, and if I can say this is, I'm not a paid advertiser for Duolingo, but if you don't have Greek classes available, Duolingo, excellent, and it is free. So that's another resource. I skipped Pat here. It's Patrick J. I am a Greek Orthodox convert. Why in more traditional Greek churches confession is less, if it can be explained real quick, please.
Yeah, and again, like I said, several years ago, when we had traveled with a group of us and we went to Mount Athos, and we were at the monastery, and after dinner we sat down and talked to one of the elders that was there, and we asked him, and we said, Yeronda, elder, the same exact question that you asked. Why is it in the Greek culture that we don't receive communion? And I'm telling you right now, the Yeronda told us that unfortunately, in the old days, and we're talking about now the old days of like the 20s, the turn of the century, a lot of the priests were not, in the smaller villages, were not trained. They were good chanters, but they weren't trained theologically. So when people were confessing to them, afterwards, when they were down at the taverna and they were having their ouzo, they were unfortunately spilling their guts. And so they learned, don't tell the priest anything because he's going to blab it. And so what they did is the parents who came here told their kids that, and said, you don't need to be confessing to a priest. Don't tell a priest. This has been our experience. When you couple that with the fact that America is a mostly Protestant country, and that kids growing up hear from their Protestant brethren, you confess directly to God, and Protestants do not have the sacrament of confession, so they are being told by their friends, you confess to God. You don't need to go to a priest. So when you couple those two things together, then what you get is you get a lack of respect and a lack of understanding of the purpose of Holy Communion. Now, certainly, absolutely, today, no Greek Orthodox priest in the archdiocese is now going and blabbing in a bar somewhere at Taverna. I mean, these are very, very trained and well-educated men. So this is not happening, but it is very hard to overcome inertia. So those two things, unfortunately, have created this situation. What continues this situation is the fact that we don't push it. Okay, I mean we have to blame ourselves as priests. The Russians are very tough on this. They know if you come up and they say, "I did not see you for confession," you are not receiving communion. I mean, they just say it. If you don't like it, leave, go somewhere else. We don't do that in the Greek Archdiocese. We're a little soft on that. So we're not helping the situation. Now, again, I think it's going to be very difficult for me now in this parish to now say, "You're not receiving communion. You're not receiving communion." I don't know. I'm going to cause more turmoil, right, if I start to do that. But what we need to do as priests is we need to continue to educate people on why confession is important and why the sacrament is important and why why this confessing only to God is not the full answer of what the early church did.
Oh, there's a comment. Donis says Kojak was bald and cool. And if I could add, Sean Connery was bald and Scottish, therefore cool.
Therefore cool. Yeah,
I'll take even farther. Okay, you got Kojak, played by Telly Savalas, who also played, in my opinion, the best Ernst Stavro Blofeld in the Bond series in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I'll also add Yul Brynner.
Right?
But hey, there aren't many things I can make fun of this man for. I can make fun of his sense of humor. My sense of humor is just as crazy. So, but Robert Yanni did have some follow-ups to the question he asked earlier about the cross on the forehead, specifically about the action on the forehead, not like a normal cross, and he even further indicates to explain it more accurately. Wow, there's a loud motorcycle outside. To explain it more accurately, after Exaritos, his mother, I assume, taught him to do the cross on the forehead with 4 fingers, with only 1 finger on the forehead. There's something strange about that. Well,
there is nothing in the Orthodox faith that has us make our cross any other way other than 3 fingers together, 2 fingers down. There is nothing in the Orthodox Church that tells us to do it any other way. Now, if this is some type of village custom that came, I can't speak to that. But we in seminary were not taught any other way to make the cross than 3 fingers together, 2 fingers down. So this must be a very, very specific local culture.
Okay. Trench says that referring back to that non-Orthodox can receive communion, he says that the Archbishop, I'm assuming LP DeForos is talking about, the Archbishop said they can.
No. No, he did not.
Have you ever heard, or what would have been mistaken for him saying that? Did he say something like that?
And people have absolutely misquoted him. I listened to the words. What he said was a question had come up about inter-Christian marriages. Why can't the non-Orthodox spouse receive communion? And what LP the Forest said was, I understand the tragedy of that. And because it is very difficult. And he said, I personally don't see a problem with that, but it is not our Orthodox. It is right now. It is not our Orthodox faith. What he said was my personal opinion is that I see nothing wrong with it, but this is something that we can look at as the Orthodox Church. But he never said yes, you are allowed to do that. So that was misquoted.
Okay. All right. Southern Jedi, could you speak to the importance of doubting thought? I just skipped. Where did you go? Here we go. Of doubting thoughts, not feeding into them, but rather observing them and letting them pass.
Well, I think that was very succinctly said. That's exactly what St. John Chrysostom tells us when we are dealing with thoughts. Thoughts are not sins. They are the beginning of sin. All right? And what St. John tells us is to do exactly what... Who said that?
Southern Jedi.
Southern Jedi said, is to let those pass. And the way to let them pass is not to dwell on them. St. John Chrysostom said, the dwelling on the thought is now okay, sorry, let me start back. The thought is not a sin. The dwelling on the thought is the beginning of sin. The action is sin. That's what St. John Chrysostom said. All right. So in this case, what St. John Chrysostom said is to avoid sin, then you have to let that thought go. That means involve in some other activity, do something else, say the Jesus prayer, pray the Apodidon, something, say the 50th Psalm. So he is absolutely correct that there's nothing wrong in having those thoughts. Some people come to me and they confess, Father, I had bad thoughts. I'm like, that is not a sin. But when you dwell on those thoughts, like, oh, I should do that, or is there a way that I could do it and not? Okay, that is when you enter into the realm of sin. So what I tell them is exactly what then Southern Jedi says, which is move past that thought. Let it go and do something that is going to glorify God.
And then to add to that, to use the quote that I'm probably going to misquote from another Jedi, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. And where does fear begin? It begins as a thought.
It does? No, I mean, no, but you have to, no, I mean, fear can begin with, I mean, if I see a lion, that ain't a thought, that's a lion. I am going to have fear, right?
Oh, yeah, but fear is something that happens internally, though.
Oh, yeah, but
Yeah.
I wasn't, it's not me thinking about it. It's me looking at the lion and going, man, that thing's going to kill me.
It's a biological reaction. You're not even aware that you thought about it.
Oh.
Thinking about what that lion's going to do to you. That's the fear.
Ah, yes, okay. All right, I can see, yes, okay, because in my mind, right, I am thinking about what is going to happen. Yes, okay. I get that. All right.
Did I skip something?
Mind Test had a very interesting question. Welcome, Mind Test. About name. Maybe next time. The Vietnamese prefer the tradition name for their children. Can this become a problem for a convert because the Orthodox Church doesn't have influence in Vietnam? So, and as part of Vietnamese culture,
Yeah.
there is a tradition for naming the children.
Sure, we have a tradition as Greeks for naming our children.
But how about will that present an issue for somebody, a Vietnamese person who converts to Orthodoxy?
No. Mm-mm.
Will they have to change their name? Could you explain that for them?
They're Vietnamese, Australian, Chinese, it's not going to matter. The reason that you pick a saint's name is so that you can emulate the life of that saint. You pick a saint that speaks to you. Okay, so your family name, maybe usually doesn't have like a connection, all right? Especially if it comes from another culture. All right. So if you have the name, let's think of a simple name. Trying to think of a simple name that's not like a saint or something like that.
Saint Bob.
All right.
There's a Robert though.
All right, but let's say your
Kenneth.
dad's
Those are Kenneth. Robert. Yeah.
Okay. So let's say there's your name is Kenneth, or your name is Chu, right? Okay.
Chewbacca. We'll just pick Chewbacca. There's no Saint Chewbacca. Okay.
All right.
We're good.
So the idea is you have nothing to emulate. If you're entering into the Orthodox Church, okay, what we want you to do is to have a role model. Okay. So Chewbacca has no role model. All right. Neither does Kenneth. All right. But if now you relate to Saint Anthony because of his life, or if you relate to Saint John Chrysostom because he was a great speaker, or you relate to Saint Mark or Saint Luke because you like what they did, then you select that as your name. So you will always be named, you will always be known as Chew or Pan or Kenneth. But at the time of communion, you will be referred to as John, right? And so it's not that we don't like your name. The Orthodox are not trying to change your name. What they're trying to do is to get you to pick or to choose a role model of whose life you would like to emulate.
Ken mentioned Saint Kenneth of Wales.
Oh,
Yes, there is a Kenneth.
So
There's
either
a
way,
Saint
I was like, "There's no Chewbacca. We're good with."
Yeah, right. But there is a Saint Kenneth, so very good. They're hot on that. All right.
Yes. And Bergerman says, I'm literally always struggling with those thoughts, but I say myself that Christ knows these thoughts don't belong to me or from my heart.
There you go. Because we do believe as Orthodox that many of those thoughts are put there by the demons. We do believe that, to do evil is put there by the demons. It is not in our nature. We are born as a created being of God. We are good, but we are tainted by sin. This is a very Orthodox belief.
M. Horvath asks, did anybody ever get around to watching The Chosen? Remember we talked about that?
Yes, and in fact, that was one of the movies that Diane had asked us to. She sent me an email on that and asked. And so what we're going to do is we have Man of God, The Chosen, and then we have one more.
Cliffs of Freedom.
Cliffs of Freedom. And so what we want to do is when those are available, I actually want to show those in the hall. I want to make that a
movie night.
A movie night in the hall. Absolutely.
All right. I hate movies so much.
Yes. Yes. And Demos, you will obviously be in charge of the movie presentation.
Oh, I see a question. I don't think we've.
And then we'll talk about it on the show.
And then we can talk about it on the show. I like that.
Yeah.
I see a question being asked. I don't think we've had asked a question from before. John Sims. What is the meaning behind a name day name? For example, my daughter is Saint Catherine.
So in the Orthodox Church, at least in the Greek Orthodox Church, we don't celebrate birthdays as much as we celebrate name days. For the reason that I gave earlier, is because what is more important to us as Orthodox is for us to emulate the lives of those people who have gone before us and who have shown the light of Christ, S-H-O-N-E, have shown the light of Christ and have been now his disciple. And so it's much more important for us as Greek Orthodox, and I would say other Orthodox too, is that we celebrate our Saints' Day, which is our name day, what we were named after, rather than celebrate our birthdays. Now, in America, a birthday is a big thing. But the problem with the birthday is it's always about us, right? The birthday is about us. The name day is about the saint. So the gifts that we give and the things that we do on those name days is to remember that particular saint. Like yours on December 15th, right, is Saint Eleftherios. So we have a liturgy on that day, right? So we do things that glorify God on that particular day, as opposed to a birthday. You probably may not necessarily do that.
And then Costa asks, kind of following along that, Costa asks, do you believe if we were born on a certain saint's feast day, we have a connection with that saint? Let's say it's not your name day, but you're born on this day of another saint. Do we have a connection with that saint?
Could be. I can't. That could be part of God's plan that that we recognize that. But I was not born on Annunciation, but I still feel that my name Evangelos connects me to the event of the Annunciation, and you with Saint Eleftherios. Now, so I don't know if I want to make too much of that connection. I mean, it certainly would remind you to celebrate your name day, right? If you were born on that day.
No, but if you're, let's say I'm Saint Eleftherios, but I'm born on, and I don't know, sorry, what saint is commemorated on my birthday, which is in August.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Do
Yeah.
we have a connection with, do I have a connection with the saint who's commemorated on the day that I'm born?
Well, I think the answer to that is, I mean, do you know who the saint is for your birthday?
I looked it up once. I used to know.
All
I
right.
can't remember.
But you had to go out of your way to do it. It didn't really, there wasn't a connection established until you made the connection, right?
Right.
So,
Real quick, Trench asked a question earlier, saying that only 18% of Greek Orthodox approve what the Greek Church is doing, as the Orthodox consensus site shows. While Russian Orthodox was better approval and increased members to more tradition, while the Greeks lost. And its solution is to change. Why? You disagree, but the members speak for themselves, and so do the Greek-speaking majority disagree with the church and the heads. Do you have a response to that?
I think I do. But while you were looking up, the other question.
Well, there's also something that we do need to finish on regardless. As in, there's something else that happened yesterday that deserves some attention.
Okay.
I think I'm going to leave it to Presbytera to point out what that was.
Well, it was your birthday yesterday.
Oh. Okay.
Happy birthday?
Oh. Yeah. Okay. All right.
So are you going by the Greek way of saying your age or the American way of saying your age?
Well, this year I'm going by this year I'm going to go by the American way, because I am officially capable of retirement. Not that I'm going to retire, but it's good to know that I'm in the retirement zone.
Officially.
That's 62, right? 62, I'm officially in the retirement zone. So if it was Greek, I would say I'm starting my 63rd year, but I just want to be able to say I am officially in the retirement zone.
And as a gift, the movie gods gave you No Time to Die.
And that's right. That's right. Because tomorrow we will be seeing No Time to Die. Exactly right. So
We got an answer to. We're getting a lot of happy birthdays.
Thank you.
62. You are very young.
Oh, good. I like to hear that. That's good, because I'm a year older than Demos.
Yes.
You said he was 70 the last show.
Oh, that's true. Well,
I age backwards. I'm like Benjamin Button.
Or like,
Yeah.
or like Mork's son.
Oh yes. I'm Jonathan Winters. That's
That's right. That's a blast from the past. What are you looking up?
remember this? The new study just came out. And sorry that.
we're getting a couple of Bergeron says you look maximum 50.
Wow.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of birthday mentions. So
Wow. See, thank you. Wow. Okay.
would
Because usually
say-
that is not what they say.
what did they say?
Well, usually what they say is we'll be walking together, and they'll say to Terry, "Can you please introduce me to your father?"
They don't say that. That's not true. You're fibbing. Now, ordinarily, I think your birthday would have fallen on the show next year, but I think it's a leap year next year.
Oh, so we're gonna skip it.
Yeah, so next year your birthday is going to be a Friday, so you're going to miss the show.
Well, you don't want to be. You wanna be out celebrating on your birthday. You don't want to be stuck in here.
We love being in here.
That's right.
I don't want to be stuck.
And Donis says you're too young to retire.
Who said that?
Donis.
Oh.
Towards you. Yes.
Although with the leap year, my birthday is gonna be on the show next year.
Is it really?
I think so. I'm
Oh.
not gonna look that far ahead, but I'm pretty sure.
So I was looking up the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America, second consensus of the Orthodox Christian churches. I thought that there was the data in here for all Orthodox churches in America, but this particular report only has GOA, only has the Greek Archdiocese. He is correct that Trench is correct that that there is a decline in membership, and specifically overall there is a 22% decline in membership across the GOA.
Is that over the last year or over the last 10 years?
Over the last 10 years.
10 years.
Over the last 10 years. With some dioceses having higher numbers, obviously. What is interesting is that that the further, it seems like the further west you go, it's not well. Now I can't even really say that, but he is correct. There is a 22% decline. All right. The report, unfortunately, doesn't go into. There's another addendum to the report that goes into what they have found, but. Now the second part of Trench's question is, okay, so now why is there an increase now in the Russian Orthodox churches, and there's a rise in Ethiopian churches? Well, part of the answer to that question is what we saw in Flint. Okay, remember at St. George in the Antiochian church there, we saw that there was kind of a steady decline, but that influx of Jordanians, right, and Lebanese, all of a sudden the numbers went right through the roof. So
and it's when the numbers that was a predominantly English speaking church, and boy did that change.
That changed, and it became a very ethnic
predominantly church. Arabic speaking.
Right. The creed was done in Arabic, the Lord's Prayer was done in Arabic, the chanting was done in Arabic. So part of the reason for that is that in the GOA we don't have an ethnic influence anymore. Nobody is coming from Greece, but we do have people.
Some do. A
few, but a lot of those people are, to be fair, a lot of those people are professionals and don't really go to church. I mean, I know several doctors from Greece that are at the U of R and RIT and study, and they're not really attending here.
Yet I know a biologist who.
Well, yes, okay. There's always exceptions.
Trench has a clarification. Actually, he's a little bit more specific. The point is, why change the strategy when the old worked well? When you even said the Archbishop of Greece was more traditional to bring so many in the church.
He was not. He was opposite of traditional. He was the old people in Greece were railing against him. Now you're letting kids come in any way that they want. So he was being untraditional. He wasn't being traditional. So the issue is going to be, return to what? Okay, the Romanian church that we just came from, the service is done all in Romanian. The Russian church, it's done. So. If I now, and I'm going to ask you, if tomorrow I say I'm going to return to the way the church was, the entire liturgy, including the sermon, is going to be done only in Greek, what do you think would happen here? If I was a traditionalist and I said, I want only chanting in Greek, all service will be in Greek, only Greek sermons, what do you think would happen?
Some would love it. A lot would not.
Right. I would literally lose half my parish.
You'd be causing exactly what you're trying to avoid.
Oh, right. So the return to traditionalism is a pipe dream. We are no longer in the GOA a predominantly ethnic church. And so
we've had a person who is Greek, not here in our previous parish, who is Greek from Greece. It's been here for a number of years, but from Greece, and said they enjoyed the sermon in English, the gospel reading in English more than the Greek, because they can't understand the gospel in Greek. It's not modern Greek.
Right. So, so this idea of, at least in the GOA, this idea of returning to the old ways, the traditional ways, is going to cause not 22% lack, it's going to cause over 50%. Now, we do have to address the fact that we are losing membership, but part of that is that we do have predominantly now more Orthodox to non-Orthodox marriages. Whereas in those ethnic churches, they are marrying their own, just like we did in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. Even we felt a little bit of that, right? That, let's say my grandparents, they weren't thrilled that you weren't Greek, right? They still liked you. My parents loved you, right? Parents love you. They loved you. It's gone now. But my grandparents were more like, yeah, it would have been nice. That's what they wanted. Okay. So it was at that time, we were an ethnic church. All right. And the churches that Trench is speaking about, the Russian church, the Romanian church, the Ethiopian church, that's who they are. Okay. So they have a tight-knit community. They want to grow because that's who they are. We're now kind of an American church. We have American friends now. The other couple, they see that church, that Protestant church, maybe their kids enjoy it a little bit more, or they're going to a Catholic school. So you know what? Just let's go to my wife's or my husband's Catholic church, so on and so forth. So.
Well, Trench says it's not about language, and Diane says it's about God. It's not about you or your church.
Well, so now, okay, so I'm going to start with the God one first. Okay. That's an interesting point because I have heard that argument for people leaving the Orthodox Church. The reason they've given me when I ask, why are you not a member of the Orthodox Church? Well, because I've found God in my non-denominational church. Now, they don't go to a Catholic church. Okay. Whenever they leave the Orthodox Church, both here and in my previous parish, it's always to a Protestant church. And that's what they say. I have found God in that church. Here in the Orthodox Church, I don't see God. You guys never talk about God. And I'm thinking to myself, when did we not talk about God? And the answer to that question was, when I say, we believe this, we believe that, and they go, you believe that? And I said, yes. But because they've heard it only in Greek, right? They don't know what they've heard. So they hear it in English. So she's right. It is about God, but that's what they tell me is I left because God isn't in the Orthodox Church. And I'm like, then you don't know who the Orthodox Church is, but they've already left and they've established a life there. All right. Now, Trench's part of that was
it's not about language. And he specifies that science over God is the issue in his opinion.
All right, I can't necessarily argue with that. That certainly was what happened to me. Because the Orthodox Church did not explain herself well to me, meaning the priests did not explain Orthodoxy to me as not a scientist, but as a person of science, an engineer, I said, look, I'm a person of science. Explain to me why we believe what we believe. And then they would tell me silly superstitious things. And I would be like, okay, you know what? I'm done with this. This is just stupid. All right. So I left the church. All right. But when I met a priest who said, no, here is what we believe. Here is the logical reasoning of why we believe what we believe in a very scientific and logical fashion. Then I went, I get it. That makes sense to me. That brought me back to the church. All right, but not a bunch of mumbo jumbo about goofy things that we believe.
Give us an example so there is no misunderstanding, like a goofy thing.
Okay, so I was at I was doing a church tour one time, and I was talking to a couple of people, and then a person came up and they wanted to ask a question, and I was busy with somebody else, and so she was asking. She says, why do the Orthodox sense? Why do you sense? And I was listening, and an Orthodox person went to them and said, that's to scare the demons away. okay, you know, we look silly when we say things like that. You know, I'm trying to think of you know, other superstitions that you know, that
I can think of some non-Orthodox ones. I mean, living down south, we always heard about some of the churches where these tended to be more fundamentalist, like Pentecostal, to the extreme, where they, you know, rattlesnake rituals and so forth.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. But I'm trying to think of, you know,
That stuff, you know, I can see somebody, if they encounter that, imagine the poor person who that's their first encounter with Christianity.
yes,
You know,
yeah.
somebody dancing with a snake. You know, I mean, I wouldn't blame them for running in the other direction. But what you're saying is that through your experience, through, you know, taking a logical look at the specific words and what Jesus actually meant, is what brought you back to the church in a way.
Well, all churches do that. I mean, they what this particular, what my spiritual father did for me was, he said, this is why the Orthodox Church senses. This is why the Orthodox Church has icons. This is why the Orthodox Church is shaped the way that she is. And I was like, oh, now I get that.
Which is exactly what you do in your videos. You explain the symbolism and the practical.
All right,
nature
and look
to
at the numbers. Look at the numbers that we get. I want people, like Diane said, it is about God, but I want people to discover that we know who God is. All right, I mean, mind God, I don't want to crazy here, but we, you know, we know who God is. We know our faith. You know,
We know who's banging on the table.
we know who's banging on the table.
Well,
all right?
we've gone 20 minutes over, and this is like one of those topics where I know that we can talk about even longer. Maybe we can pick up on it. In fact, we have a leftover question from our chanter John, which we'll be opening the show with next time, all about faith healing and so forth.
Oh,
So-
oh.
And
Okay.
another John has a question here, but I have to say, I've been corrected. I stand corrected. A
Yeah.
number of people have let me know leap year is not next year. It's 2024. So your birthday will be on the show. Yours will not.
Yes.
Oh, all right, very okay. All right.
Well, you know, I always remember it with the presidential election, and for a moment I was even thinking, wait, midterms are next year. If that's what I'd like to skip. I'll leap all of that.
So, but you know, but what Diane said, what Trent said, are important points. They are at the crux of you know, what is our future. You know, the Orthodox Church is about encountering the living God, but that's what the Protestant Church and the Catholic Church are about too. They are encountering the living God. All right, but in their cultural tradition. All right. And the Orthodox Church is not here to say that the Protestants are wrong or the Catholics are wrong. Okay, we don't feel that they have the fullness, but it's not enough just to say, you know, I want you to encounter the living God, because you can do that in those two other expressions of Christianity. What we have to do a better job at is showing them how to encounter the fullness of God in the Orthodox Church. And now, to Trench's point, this is why I think we are losing membership, is because we have not necessarily done a good job of explaining who we are. What we need is more people like my spiritual father who is able now to personally reach out and take a person of science and show them that this can be approached from a logical and scientific
Actually, I'll even add to that. Owen Pertard, I think, has a very significant point in that there should be a more focus on the youth. From his perspective, he says that he might be overstating it, but in his opinion, the Greek Orthodox youth have been treated as disposable, and that GOA needs to get it together, and SCOBA collaborative could develop a more robust approach to the youth.
Well, SCOBA's no more,
You know,
but
focus on the youth, and that's actually one thing that, if I may say so, that we're trying to do on the show by doing the virtual Sunday schools and trying to make that accessible to as many people as possible.
now we got to be careful, and I know we're running over, but we got to be very careful about that bumper sticker advertisement of, you got to care about the youth.
Yeah.
We've been saying that for 50 years. Father, the youth, you know. Okay, so we have to do a better job of defining who we're talking about in terms of youth. For me, the biggest issue that I see is those who are now 17 to, let's say, 30. That youth, because that's when they get lost. You know, I mean, from the youth that I have from, let's say, 15 down, okay, they're my altar boys. They help me serve in the church. I can get them to sing. I see them in Sunday school. I see them in events. They're in the church. We do overall, we do a pretty good job with them. I don't think we have an issue with them. What we have an issue with is once they turn 16 or 17, everything else except church takes over. They have 3 sports that they do all year long. Plus they're trying to work hard for college. Then they go away to college, you know, and again, I'm speaking from personal experience here. They go away to college, you know, the church doesn't connect with them really. There's no real outreach that we have. So I think when we're talking youth, the salvation of the church, we're talking about 17 to, I'd say, probably about 30, you know. People like Sam who sit in this seat. This is why we have young people sitting in this seat, right?
And if I may add, and you know, this isn't stuff that we normally share on the show, but one of the proudest things associated with what we're doing, and not to pat ourselves on the back, but it's just one of the things I'm particularly proud about, is that our biggest audience on YouTube is the demographic between 18 and 34. Majority of our audience. So that's just been something I think that we've all been very happy that in one way or another we're reaching them. You know, hopefully they'll come back into church, but at least they have a voice in their head.
Look. Okay, I mean, you know, Demos is the miracle child himself. Okay, you have been to church more in these last 3 years than what?
Then I kind of missed my weekends off.
Weekends off. What?
Oh yeah, I've been here doing this quite a bit.
Okay, but you're considered. I mean, okay, you're on the upper spectrum of youth. Okay.
Oh, I'm near that age demographic. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And it's things like this that brought you here and keep you here, right? Because you feel like you're making a difference, right?
Well,
I think that's important too.
It's, you know, I know that a lot of people don't like this, don't want to accept it, and I understand because I'm reticent of it myself. It's that, you know, the internet, the digital frontier is the new wave to communicate, and in order for the church to grow, I think it needs to have a strong online presence, because if it doesn't have a strong online presence, the only presence that it will have are those people who are speaking against it. And there are plenty of them. So I think that, you know, that's one of the things that interested me into coming to do this here. But at the same time, you know, I've shared a lot of these videos with friends who are atheists, friends who are have an atheist family, and they, you know, they tell me they love the videos. They love the humor. The kids get a big kick out of it too. I don't know if it's enough to make them convert, but at the very least, you know,
it has them thinking.
These kids are growing up with good morals at the very least. At the very least.
And this is an exposure that they didn't have before.
That they wouldn't have had before.
Right. So.
But you know, those are just like my personal friends that I'm speaking about. I'm not going to be daring enough to say that it's for everyone, but one can hope.
All right. So, all right.
Oh, one last thing to
Okay.
John Sims. Email Father your question, and he'll answer it.
agocny@gmail, and also you've gotten a few requests to end with a prayer for the world to do better.
Perfect.
Yeah, so you are tasked with saving the world.
I'm tasked with saving the world. All right.
So that's the next expansion. We need to create a superhero show.
But
don't get me started on how much I hate Bible, man.
But see, we don't even have to invent it because we've got it right here. I mean, the liturgy is so perfect. So, glory to the Father, to the Son, to the Holy Spirit, now and forever, to the ages of ages. Amen. For the peace of God for the peace from God and the salvation of our souls, for the peace of the whole world, and for the stability of the holy churches of God, and for the oneness of all, and for our country, the president, those in public service, and for this parish, this city, and for every city and country, and for the faithful who live in them, let us pray to the Lord. For your name is holy now and forever, to the ages of ages. Amen.
All right, and hey, we just did an impromptu 2-hour show.
Holy smokes.
2-hour special.
Oh man. Well,
Now you're definitely looking forward to James Bond tomorrow, huh?
yes, I am.
How do you feel about Daniel Craig leaving the role? Were you a fan of Daniel Craig? We've gone on for 2 hours. To go on for 4 minutes, so we'll go complete it. So
Well, again, I'm like Terry. Sean Connery is James Bond, but I mean, Daniel Craig, I thought
He's a close second.
he's a very, very close second. I mean, he did play a much darker Bond, right? I mean, Sean Connery was, somewhat flippant. He had his dark moments. He had his dark moments, but generally speaking, he was much more just kind of man about town. But Daniel Craig was always kind of that dark
He's more
character.
physical.
Oh, Daniel Craig?
Yeah.
Connery was, and Lazenby surprisingly was as well. But I'll say, when I think of James Bond, right, I think of what people normally categorize him as. The man that every man wants to be,
Right.
and also that every woman wants to be with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd want to be Sean Connery. I want to be Roger Moore. He had it much easier. I'd even be Pierce Brosnan. But Daniel Craig goes through so much trauma in these movies that I don't necessarily know if I'd want to be him. That's not a knock. He's a great Bond, and
Right.
Casino Royale and Skyfall are amongst the best films in the series. But I don't necessarily, especially if you've seen Casino Royale, I don't necessarily want to be Bond in that film.
Or in this last one with Spectre about the drills and all that stuff. It's a much more I think lifelike in terms of maybe what spies got.
If those drills were lifelike, he would still be in that chair, Father. that was the most ridiculous scene in that movie.
Oh, drilling in his head?
They're drilling into his head and telling him all these bad things are gonna happen, and he jumps out of the seat and mows everybody down with a machine gun. That wasn't they set him up as a serious Bond, and then they give him later in the movies, at least they give him these ridiculous scenes. I don't know. I'm hoping the new one will be great.
Yep, we're looking forward to that. That's
Yes,
tomorrow. So, all right, but again, thanks everybody for staying tuned in for our very lengthy show here. But these are really, really important points that I am hoping that all of us are going to be evangelists for the Orthodox faith, and to promote these things that we're talking about. So, great discussion, Presbytera. It's always nice to have you on the show.
Thank you. Always good to be here.
Always, right? Okay. And Demos, as always.
Thank you. Happy birthday again.
And thank you. And and I did get a wonderful birthday present from Prez. She gave me one of my favorite scotches that I haven't had in quite a while, so we got to enjoy that. In fact, I think after the show we might be sampling a little bit. So.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Time to go.
All right. So again, thanks everybody, and good night.